part iron, part clay, man and machine. What? I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, BaHa YAHAWASHI, BaHa RAWCHAA QADASH. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is part iron, part clay, man and machine. What? And pretty much this lesson is something I've been wanting to do for a few days now. I just never got around to it. And pretty much there's a individual on YouTube by the name of, he used to go by Time for an Uprising. Now he goes by the name of Time for Judgment. And pretty much he's a Christian. Sounds like an Edomite, so I don't know if he could be a Jake or it's just a straight up Edomite or whatever the case may be. Time will tell. I've never seen a picture of him. I don't know his name. I just know the name of his channel. And he brings out a lot of good information. He breaks down a lot of these different events, you know, like the Super Bowl halftime and just different videos, you know, dealing with the left-hand energy, Illuminati, and the whole Freemason stuff. And like I said, he has a lot of good information, but when it comes to the scriptures, I mean, he does a butcher shop session on the scriptures, you know. And that's why I wanted to do this lesson, because what he teaches is when you read in the book of Daniel, the 2nd chapter, where he speaks about the part of the beast that was part iron and part clay, he's saying that that's man mixed in with, you know, this technology, like you see here, an individual, you know, with a metal arm, you know, like they show you in the movie, the Terminator movies, the movie I, Robot. Well, they would label a cyborg, which is half man, half machine. And pretty much that's what he says that scripture is talking about. And that's not what it's talking about. Not at all. Not by a long shot. Now, what that is dealing with, if you want to go biblically with it, is dealing with the miracles that these devils would do. Because they have the technology, you know, to alter the human body, you know, and make it stronger, so-called, but at what cost, you know? Because you're altering the mechanism of the Most High. There's a reason why the body is the way that it is, and it's designed the way that it is, and it's designed to live and then die, because that is the direct curse that goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, when Eve first, then Adam, you know, broke the commandment of the Lord of not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And pretty much that was the design set up for these bodies until the change comes, and the sons of God, which are the Israelites today, will be enhanced. But they will be enhanced by the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahawashi. They won't have any iron or steel or mechanical parts in them. What's going to happen is the body's going to change first and foremost once it starts rising to the chariots. The elect body's going to change. Then in the changing of the body, there will be a change of the heart of stone that will be removed, and a heart of flesh will be put in. And then after that, the laws will be inserted into our inward parts. And that will be, for lack of better words, an extraterrestrial body. You know, a body that has powers. And this is why Esau, you know, they do a lot of these comic book movies, you know, with superheroes and all of that, because we're going to be the true superheroes on the planet, so you could understand. So we're going to get into it, see how far we can go. I may have to do this in 2 parts to see how the spirit rolls, you know. See how it rolls. So the first scripture I want to start off with was 2 Peter, the 1st chapter, and the 19th verse. Because these individuals that call themselves Christians, when it comes to prophecy, they do a butcher shop session on the prophecies, because they don't know the scriptures. They're not they're not endowed with the Holy Spirit to be able to discern. Now, your scholars, historians, that have biblical knowledge, they know certain things prophetically as far as history is concerned. But as far as spiritual things of the scriptures, they can't discern it because it's not given to them. You have to be spiritually discerned in order to be able to understand. And you have to be a prophet in order for the Lord to reveal these secrets to you. Surely the Lord power will do nothing, but he revealeth his secrets unto his servants, the prophets. So here in 2 Peter 1:19, we have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto you do well that you take heed, because the prophecies that we have are sure. Remember, Daniel said the vision is sure. It says, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place, right? Because America is that dark place, and this world overall is a dark place. The light that's shining in it is what? The light of YAHAWASHI, which is this truth. It says, unto the day dawn, right? When this place starts going down and is finished, and a new day starts, which is the kingdom of heaven, which is YAHAWASHI / Yasha'Allah's kingdom. And the day star arise in your hearts. Who is the day star? YAHAWASHI, which is the light, which he gave to his disciples, which he said he would come and sup with those that love him, which would give them the light that he had. This is why he said, ye are the light of the world. Let your lights, shine. It says, knowing this first, that no prophecy of the scripture is of any private interpretation. Right? There's no private interpretation. The things that are written in the scriptures were written in code. They were written in allegories. They were written in symbolisms, parables. And those mysteries were only given to the prophets to be able to understand and break these things down. It says, for the prophecy came not in old time by the will of man, because it wasn't men that got together and said, let's just put this together, that, let's say this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Why? Because, like the scriptures say, whether they're prophecies, they shall fail. So if you have a prophecy of man, of course it's going to fail. But now if that prophecy is of a divine origin, it's going to prosper. That's why it says, seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail. Because they are divinely inspired by Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Psalm 68:11. The Lord gave the word. Yahweh Bashem Yahushai gave the word. Great was the company of those that published it, which were who? The prophets that published this truth that we're reading about in the scriptures. I'll read this. The brother posted it. Amos 3:7. Surely the Lord power will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets. The word prophet means pro is before, and fet comes from the word phasai, which means to say or to say before. All right, so we have a more sure word of prophecy because this word that we're teaching was not set up by the will of man. It has no private interpretation. It says, but the holy men of the Most High, that's the point, spake as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. You see, and this is why we have these prophecies now, and they are sure. And the major prophecy of all prophecies is YAHAWASHI coming on the scene, first and foremost, 2,000 years ago. Now we're at the point at the very end of these prophecies, which is the MOTB, the time of Jacob's trouble, World War III, and eventually the deliverance of the elect of the nation of Israel. All right. So when we go to Daniel's 2:40, because when you read up above this, this is a whole thing of Nebuchadnezzar trying to get someone to interpret his dream. He had a dream. He's not Martin Luther King. And he couldn't remember the dream, but he knew that the dream troubled him. So what he did was he called his Magi, his wise men, his Chaldeans, all of the wise men of the realm. And they told him to recall his dream and to interpret the dream for him. And no one was able to do that. They were questioning him, asking him, what's this, that, tell us the dream and we'll break it down for you. He said, you're stalling. Because you see, obviously, that the dream is gone for me, so you're stalling for time. But if you don't make the dream known unto me, all of yous, every last one of yous is going down. and no one could break it down. So he lowered the boom and gave the order that all the wise men of his whole realm be put to death. Daniel and the men that were with him were all included in that because they were all wise men. So Daniel asked what happened, why was the decree so hasty. He said, bring me before him, let me speak to him. And then, went through the whole thing where the Lord revealed the dream to Daniel. He praised the Lord YAHAWASHI for revealing that dream to him. They fasted and prayed to the Lord. Then he went before the king and he started breaking the dream down to the king. And he told him that it's not, the wise men of your realm couldn't break it down. But I'm going to break it down to you, but it's not because I am so great in interpreting dreams that I know all mysteries. There is a power in heaven that revealeth secrets. And this is the key. There's a power in heaven that revealeth secrets. And this is why I'm able to break this down to you. So he goes on and he breaks the dream down, tells them what the dream is, about the head of gold, so on and so forth. And then he goes into the breakdown of what the dream meant. Now, when we get to the last part of the dream, which was a statue, the part we're dealing with is the legs, the part of iron and the part of clay part, which the individual, now the name of the channel is A Time for Judgment, used to be Time for an Uprising, says that it's talking about man and machine merging together. That's the part iron and part clay. The iron part is the machine, the clay part is the body, the human body. He's off on that. Off, totally off. So Daniel 2:40 goes into the fourth part of the beast, which were the legs and the feet. It says the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. And this fourth kingdom, even as you see here, it says it's Rome. And any real serious scholar knows this, that the four beasts in the book of Daniel 2 and in the book of Daniel 7 are the Assyrio-Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, the Greek Empire, and the Roman Empire. Anyone else that says different is bugged out. They bugged out, elder. They bugged out. All right? It says, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. Right? Because this particular beast, when it came into power, was given, the Greeks were given great power and authority, because they're also Edomites and they also had the blessing of the sword. But when the Romans came in, the Romans were on a whole nother level. They had mercenaries from different nations. They had war tactics, strategies from other nations. Their weaponry was superior, iron, of course, and the skills that they had and the weapons that they had were borrowed from different time frames, Remember, the Lord gave them a spirit of strategy. All right? That's why they were compared to iron, because all of the other metals before it were more precious than iron, but they weren't as strong as iron. Because once the Roman Empire would be established, there would be a force to be reckoned with, militarily. This is why even when the beast came back into power, in Revelation 13, it said, who can make war with the beast? And if you look at the beast in general, which is the EU and NATO, America is attached to that. And when you look at their arsenal and their military might, it's impossible for any one nation to come up against that force. This is why you would have to have different nations outside of those so-called European nations coming together as one to even be able to stand a chance against this power of this beast. And why is it so? Because the Lord gave them that blessing, the blessing of the sword. So it says, and whereas I saw the feet and toes, now the feet and toes are the bottom part of this statue. And toes are what? 10 toes. So these 10 toes are the same as the Daniel 7, the 10 horns, is Revelation, all the different parts in Revelation where it speaks about the 7 heads and 10 horns. This is the part we're dealing with. The feet of it. Now, the feet of it was Rome, but Rome, remember, fell. And in Daniel 7, it kind of briefly goes into it. It says there came a little horn out of that, and that little horn is America. Because the bruise or the wound or the head was wounded but then it came back to life during the time of the Renaissance period. You brothers that's been here for a while know the history on that. So once it came into power, this is what we see now. Now, this fourth beast, which today is the revival of the ancient Roman Empire through America, Babylon the Great, has the 10 toes or the 10 horns, which are the 10 allies in so-called Europe. This is what the 10 toes is talking about, or the 10 horns, which are 10 powers. And the toes are very important because they help bring what? Balance. This is why when you wear those tight ass shoes with the cockroach, stompers, that they're real tight in the front, especially women's shoes. They're very tight in the front. You could kill a roach in the corner. That what that does is it crushes your feet. And what happens, it throws your balance off. These devils did that on purpose. So the front of the shoe, first and foremost, is collapsed into each other. Then the front of the shoe, if you ever look at your shoe, the front of the shoe is arched up a little bit. And that's so you don't get a firm plant on the ground, because our feet are supposed to be planted on the ground. This is why people that walk barefoot, especially on the islands, you see their feet are wide, because they're connected to nature, and that rubber and the thing disconnects us from the earth. We could get grounded just by stepping on the earth. But that's a whole nother beast right there. So these 10 toes is what the America is riding upon. In the book of Revelation 17, it speaks about her riding on a beast. It says part of potter's clay and part of iron. Now, this is not talking about, well, they're part machine and part human. No. What it's talking about is financially. Part of the beast is, part of the 10 toes are strong financially, and the other part are weak financially. Now, I have something here called the Green Papers, Worldwide European Union Membership and History. So you could, I put these few articles, I put them in the description box so that NATO and the EU, yep, that's the beast. So you could, read this at your leisure. But this is the Green Papers, Worldwide European Union Membership and History, Origins of the European Union, the original 12 EU member states. And originally the 12 is really 10 in prophecy. All right, because when you look at Spain and Portugal, they're really one, even though they're separate. They separate themselves by governments and all that. They're really one. And then England and Ireland are really one, but they're separated into two. Hence the 10. The European Union, EU, has its origin in the European Coal and Steel Community, ECSC, created via a treaty signed at Paris, 18 April 1951, effective 25 July 1952, between Belgium, France, Germany, that's 3, the Federal Republic at the time consisting of the so-called West Germany, right, because they were split into the Iron Wall, those of you that know the history, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. So that's what, 6. So these are the 6 original members. Now, we're going to read a little something later on, Lord's will. But according to what I was reading, I was trying to do some research on it, but I didn't get any information on it. Some of you hip cats out there maybe be able to find the information. Some of you deep researchers. In 1973, around the time when you had the 6 members, I'm not sure exactly. I got to look. I believe 1973 is, this is when the other members started rolling in. And around that time, I didn't find it. Like I said, I did a brief search. They said that Henry Kissinger in 1973 called for the augmenting or the enlarging of the original 6 EU states to add 4 more members. If you could find that information, you good. I got a book called Satan's Angels Exposed, Lords, where we're going to read a little bit off of that. It says the ECSC was originally intended to gradually abolish trade barriers, custom duties, and transportation difficulties involving coal and steel throughout the geographical area covered by its 6 members, and this was indeed done during 1953-1954. So all the different paperwork or red tape that they had from getting from one point to the other, taxation and all that, was all resolved by coming into one. And pretty much this was the point. This is why later on, I believe it was 93, they called it the European Union. Not the EEC, the European Economic Community. Now it was called the European Union. Why? Because they're trying to unify everything to bring it all together into one. To make it easier to merge everything together. Right? It says, so you can read the rest of this, But I want to go here. These are the original members. Now, I don't know why they have it broken up like this. I wish they would have just put the first original 6 members, but they got it like broken up. So when you see here, original EU member state, membership in the EEC Common Market, January 1st, 1958 is when they were set up. The charter was signed I believe the charter was signed or started. No, it was started in March of 1957, and it was signed and brought into power January 1st, 1958. That's when the EEC or the EU started. Now, I had read somewhere years ago, I don't remember where, that January 1st is supposed to be Semiramis' birthday. I never fact checked that. Something I remembered reading somewhere. I don't remember where. But I did read that. So if that's the case, that explains why they would set up January 1st as the first day of the year, because they're venerating the Queen of Heaven. Anyways, Belgium, 1958. You see another one here, 1958. France, that's 2. We scroll through here, 1958, another one. Germany, 3. Scroll down, 1958, Italy, 1958, Luxembourg, 1958, Netherlands. So these 3 here, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark, and Germany. Those are the original 6. Then in 1973, Belgium, France, and Germany. Those are the 6, but these 3 here, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands. Then in 1973, you had Denmark. 1973, you also had Ireland. And in 1973, you also had Great Britain, which really is 1. That's really 1. Then in 1981, you had Greece that joined. Then in 1986, Portugal and Spain. All right, which is really 1. And when you count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it's really 10. All right, there's really 10 members there. Now, when we go to, since we're building on that, I have here, come on, dog. I have here Satan's Angels Exposed. This is on page 227. It's called The Common Market and the Trilateral Commission. Universal government, right? The word universal means to turn into one, and consequently, as a side note, the word Catholic means universal. Uni, one, versal, to turn. Universal, to turn into one. Universal government, because that's what they want. And even in Revelation, the 17th chapter, says that these all, had one mind to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of the Most High be fulfilled. It says many of the goals of the trilateralists are being fulfilled through the common market of Europe. It is possible that in our lifetime we will see much progress towards a universal government system, which especially now, this was back in 1980 or something like that. I forget exactly what year this book was written. It says, and a new world financial order that will control all buying and selling. You see? Which goes back into what? To the MOTB. It's all about the buying and selling. What did Maya Angelou say? Give me control of a nation's what? Money, and I care not who makes the laws. That's why it says that the servant is borrower to the lender, which your Lord is where we're going to get that. It says it is possible that, forget about the Antichrist part. This guy is bugged out. As far as that's concerned, there are many antichrists. 1 John 2 and 18. The common market is now comprised of 10 nations. See? You had 10, but eventually there would be 2 more added, which was really 10 altogether. It says Rome first appeared as a world power in 242 BC. This is going into some of the history of Rome. Now here you have the headquarters. We always speak about this from time to time. The headquarters of the EU, which is in Brussels, Belgium. And if you look at the building, it's a stylized cross, which is really the peace symbol, which really is the cross with the 2 arms broken off, broken down. All right. It says you are looking at the Common Market headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. Antichrist. Nope, no Antichrist. Quite possibly. Nope, it's not an Antichrist. And not one Antichrist, many. Could become the head of this union of what? 10 nations. Turn this page, you will note the building is shaped in the form of a stylized cross. When we read further down, we're going to go right here to this point. Although the Roman Empire was broken, which we know the history, and we know that which shows you this individual didn't know that at the time, that the deadly wound would be healed. And it's in the scriptures, but it wasn't revealed to him. It says, and then he will what? Come back into power. As prophesied by Daniel chapter 2, the empire would continue to rule until the time of the end. The major wars from 1000 AD to the present time have been wars involving Roman Empire nations. It says, Dr. David Weber, editor of Gospel Truth, observes, in 1957, 6 nations joined together in a trade agreement called the European Economic Community, or the Common Market. When the headquarters for the Common Market were erected in Brussels, Belgium, 10 flagpoles for the flags of 10 nations were erected in the front of the building. This was in accordance with Bible prophecy, correct? Then it goes into the original members. The 6 charter members were Belgium, France, the Netherlands, Italy, West Germany, and Luxembourg. In 1973, Henry Kissinger, this is where I said that I read this, but I did a little research. I couldn't find anything. In 1973, Henry Kissinger urged Common Market members, which were 6, to appoint what? 4 more member nations, which meant what? That would bring it up to 10. Norway, England, Denmark, and Ireland were proposed for membership. Norway, however, backed out. It was not until 1979 when a 10th nation was accepted, Greece. And in 1979, Greece came in, but remember, England and Ireland are only 1. So that was really 9. And then in 1986, I believe it was, you had Spain and Portugal, which is really 1, and that's the 10th head. The Bible tells us that in the last days, an alliance of 10 nations from out of what was once the Roman Empire will control the economic and political life of the world. And that is correct. But they would be a part of it because America would be the main force. This is why it says that the beast, the horse, let's go to Revelation 17 real quick. 17:1. There came out one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore which sitteth upon many waters. The great whore is America. The waters represents nations and peoples and tongues. All right, so that's America, the great melting pot, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. Yeah, because all nations on the earth, especially their rulers, have in somehow, some way adopted American customs, ways, views, religions, political agendas, so on and so forth, and caused their peoples to follow along. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of a fornication, right? And you can see that right now. Americanization is alive and well in these days in 2023. The year of the hopeful prophecies coming to pass of YAHAWASHI. All right. It says, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman, which is the same woman, that whore, America, sit upon a scarlet colored beast. Reason why it's called scarlet, because they're red, the red dragon. The Edomites are the one, red. And America sitting, when you sitting on top of a beast, you're in control of that beast. You're moving that beast. the direction you want them to. And it's no coincidence that after World War II, or during the time of just before World War II ended, America established, through the Bretton Woods Agreement, the American dollar as being the world reserve currency. And it was in 1948, the same year the Little Hats, which they all had a part of it. By the end of World War II, Europe was in shambles. They were finished. So in 1948, I believe it was, President Truman passed an act called the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan was America giving, I believe it was $13.3 billion in aid to help rebuild Europe. So you could see how America is the one that set that whole thing up, financed them, got them back into power, and she's sitting on top of them. This is why every time, America makes decisions and the EU or these other, the NATO nations are not with it, whose vote goes? America's vote. Because she's riding on that beast. She's riding on them 10 horns. The whole beast, she's in control of the beast in their realms. It says full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So going back here, where were we? So it says, will control the economic and political life of the world. These 10 nations referred to in Daniel 7:24, Revelation 17 and 12 could become known as the United States of Europe. It is possible that one of these 10 nations may drop out of the common market, thus making it possible for the United States to become, nope. America is never part of the 10. All right, so he's given his, belief in all of that. All right, so that's the main point. All right, so going back to Daniel, it says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of iron and part of clay, that the toes, which are 10 toes, is the European Union now. It went by different names, Common Market, the EEC, all of that, right? This is what it's talking about. All right. It says part of clay and part of iron. This is a representation of them being partly strong, partly weak by way of finance. All right. When we go here, the European debt crisis. The European debt crisis, often also referred to as the Eurozone crisis of the European sovereign debt crisis, is a multi-year debt crisis that took place in the European Union, EU, from 2009 into the mid to late 2010s. Several Eurozone member states, Greece, Italy, Portugal, Ireland, Spain, and Cyprus, which these 5 here are called PIGS, P-I-I-G-S. PIGS. These are 5 of the original members. Cyprus was catching hell too. They're part of this union, but they weren't part of the original members. Were unable to repay, refinance their government debt, or to bail out over indebted banks under the national supervision without the assistance of third parties like other Eurozone countries, the European Central Bank, or the International Monetary Fund. So they were in a jam. They were in some serious debt, right? So this is the part of the clay. This is the clay part. It says causes. The Eurozone crisis resulted from the structural problem of the Eurozone and a combination of complex factors. There is a consensus that the root of the Eurozone crisis lay in the balance of payments crisis, a sudden stop of foreign capital into countries that were dependent on foreign lending, and that this crisis was worsened by the fact that the state could not resort to devaluation. Yeah, because they were all under the euro at this time. They couldn't devalue their currency. Reduction in the value of the national currency to make exports more competitive in foreign markets. So they couldn't do what America does. It says other important factors include the globalization of finance, easy credit conditions during 2002 to 2008 period that encourage high-risk lending and borrowing. And remember, this high-risk lending and borrowing, this is the problem with taking loans. This is why it says in Proverbs 22:7, it says, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Why? Because when you take a loan, your promise to pay is based off of what? Collateral. Whenever you go to a bank to get a loan, you have to get what? Collateral. You have to give up some type of collateral, whether it's a home or a car or a land or something tangible that in case you default on that loan, this is what they're coming to collect, because they want to make sure that their debt is going to be able to be gathered back. The reason why they made the loan in the first place was to make money off of you. If you can't pay, they want to be able to be assured that you will be able to pay them back. This is why they take collateral. All right? So it says the borrower is servant to the lender, and that's what was happening. They were in a jam. It says the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, international trade imbalances, real estate bubbles that have since burst, the Great Recession of 2008 to 2012, fiscal policies, choice related to government revenues and expenses. So there's a whole host of things, but it's all revolving around what? Finance, which is what? The clay that made this union weak. Okay? And you could read more. There's more to it. But I want to jump down to evolution of the crisis. The European debt crisis erupted in the wake of the Great Recession around the late 2009 and was characterized by an environment of overly high government structural deficits and accelerated debt levels. Remember, debt equals slavery. When you're in debt, you're in a bad position. When as a negative repercussion of the Great Recession, the relatively fragile banking sector had suffered large capital losses. Most states in Europe had to bail out several of their most affected banks, with some supporting recapitalization loans. Yeah, because they were defaulting. Because of the strong linkage between the survival and the financial stability of the economy as of January 2009, a group of 10 Central and European banks had already asked for a bailout. Now, it didn't mention which ones they were. I'm pretty sure that it's going to mention other European nations that are not part of the original 10. Because when I read that, I said, but that's no, wait a minute. That would be off. That would be off, because it said that was partly strong, partly weak. And it's heavy because there's exactly 5 that were weak, which will bring it right down the line. The pigs: Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. All right. So let's see. It says, let's jump down here. The main root causes for the 4 sovereign debt crisis erupting in Europe were reportedly a mix of weak, actual, and potential growth. No growth, no moving forward. Competitive weakness. Is that not what we're witnessing in America today too? Liquidation of banks and sovereigns. Because when sovereigns get into debt and they can't pay, eventually what happens? They lose their assets and they become tributary. The servant is subject to the lender. The borrower is servant to the lender. All right. It says large pre-existing debt to GDP ratios. Right. When your debt is more than your GDP, which your GDP is gross domestic product, that's what you make. But if your debt is larger than that, then guess what? You ain't making nothing. So you're just working to pay. In that rat race, just like the average citizen, living paycheck to paycheck. And they get their paycheck and they got to divvy it out. They got to make a little payment to this, a little payment to that, put a little side for gas, for food. This is what these pigs nations were doing. It says, and considerable liability stocks, government, private, and non-private sector. In the first weeks of 2010, there was renewed anxiety about excessive national debt. See, it was an excessive national debt, which made this the clay. All right, with lenders demanding what? Lenders, the borrower is subject to the lenders. When we look up the word subject or servant, it should go back to the word ibad. Yep, ibad, which means servant. Right? Demanding ever higher interest. And this is heavy because when I was first reading through it, I was picking up a few things, and I was like a little lost because I'm not an expert in the economy. Never claimed to be and never really want to be. I just learned whatever I need to learn through the spirit and power of YAHAWASHI in order to be able to explain the scriptures. And now as I'm reading it, the understanding is coming like that. And I'm even in awe, like, oh wow, you know, because it wasn't this clear when I was reading through it. I'm just being honest, you know. Like I said, I'm not an expert in the when it comes to the economy, financial, you know. Just thought I'd share that with you. With lenders demanding even higher interest rates. This is why the scriptures say that you shall not lend upon usury. You know? Let's bring that up. Let's bring up usury. And what is usury? Usury is interest. If thou lend to any of my people that is poor by thee. And this is dealing with the Israelites, but guess what? These devils call themselves Christians. They call themselves, you know, Bible-believing, thumping individuals. They go by the credo of the Judeo-Christian, you know, book, way, religion. So if thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as a what? An usurer. What is an usurer? Like a shark loan, a loan shark. I said shark loan. Not shark loins, loan shark. Usurer is a lender. Neither shall thou lay upon him what? Usury, which is what? Interest. Let's look up the word. They should both be the same. Usurer, the word is nashah, which is to lend, be a creditor. See? And this is why people, when they in debt, they when you take credit, you indebt it. And if you take too much credit, eventually you're going to get cut off, because if you can't pay, you're going to get cut off. And eventually you become a debt slave. This is what the term debt slave is all about. Because you're in a position where you don't make enough. Your means of living exceed what you're bringing in. So therefore you have to borrow in order to be able to maintain, you know, either your lifestyle or just, you know, your daily bread, so to speak. So going back, it says usury. You had usurer, which is a lender, nashah, and then you have usury, which is nashak, which is a variation of the word. Interest, usury, see? And what is interest? This is money compounded upon a loan. You borrow $1,000, you have to pay back the $1,000 plus 10%. So you had to pay $1,100. The reason why you borrowed the money in the first place, because you were in a jam, you needed it. By putting usury or interest on something, that means you're making it worse for the individual borrowing the money in the first place. And this is what these devils have done all throughout the planet Earth. All right. So going back here, it says, with lenders demanding even higher interest rates from several countries with higher debt levels, deficits, and current account deficits. This in turn made it difficult for 4 out of 18 Eurozone governments to finance further budget deficits and repay or refinance existing government debt, particularly when economic growth rates were low, because they couldn't make anything. If you're not making the money, you can't pay the money. And if you have a debt, you can't pay that debt. And what they do is they keep compounding interest on that debt through late fees. It says, and when a high percentage of debt was in the hands of foreign creditors, as in the case of Greece and Portugal. All right, so we dealt with the word pigs. The servant, the borrower, the borrower is servant to the lender. You become tributary. You have pigs. I've typed in pigs. What does pigs mean? Pigs is a derisive acronym for Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. These are part of the members of the EU, part of the original, really the original 10. Even though they say 12, that's why the flag has 12, because they're saying it's 12, but it's really 10 when you break it down. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all together. It says, who coined the term pigs? Ireland, Greece, and Spain. Who invented that? That's no big deal. Matter of fact, let me collapse that. What do pigs countries have in common? The term pigs, or sometimes pigs, including Italy, seem to capture something about countries that were at the epicenter of the European financial crisis. All had experienced a severe economic downturn, budgetary and debt crisis, and intervention by international institutions. Part iron, part clay. This is the part clay. It says, what European countries are in financial trouble? High sovereign debts. Greece's debt was at 113% of GDP, which I don't know what that means, but I know it can't be good. If you're 130% in debt over your GDP, then that's not good. That means that more than half. Let me see. Greece's debt was 130% of the GDP. So if your GDP was so and so, and you had 113% debt over that, then that means your whole GDP plus some. I'll just leave it like that. It says, and the country needed multiple bailouts to pay back its creditors. Multiple bailouts equals what? Multiple debts. To pay its creditors. Servant borrowed to the lender. Following Greece, Ireland, Portugal, Cyprus, and Spain. So you have some of the original members here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you also had Italy in there. Let's see. What country in Europe has the highest national debt? At the end of 2021, 14 out of the 27 EU member states reported debt to GDP ratios higher than the reference value of 60%, while 7 EU member states recorded debt to GDP ratios of more than 100%. Greece recorded the highest debt to GDP ratio, 193.3%. God damn. Followed by Italy, Portugal, Spain. You get the picture, pigs. Get the picture, part clay, part iron. All right, now, let's go from there. Let me bring this up here. Now, this is the top 10 most competitive economies in Europe. Now, keep in mind, this is dated 2015, September 30, 2015. But it says European countries continue to dominate the overall ranking in the global competitiveness index, accounting for 6 of the top 10 and 10 of the top 20. These countries, all from the north and west of the continent, have mostly now recovered to their pre-crisis levels of competitiveness. Now, some advanced economies outside of Europe's top 10 are seeing benefit. Okay, let's just jump down here. The 10 most competitive European countries: Switzerland, Germany, Netherlands, Finland, Sweden, United Kingdom, Norway, Denmark, Belgium, Luxembourg. You'll notice that there's some of the 10 in here, this is the iron part, the ones that are financially more stable and stronger than the pigs, And I know Germany was one. You had United Kingdom was another one. Denmark, Belgium, and I believe there's one more in here. Let me bring this up here. So you have Belgium, which we read, Denmark. Belgium, Denmark, that's 2. United Kingdom, which was in there, that's 3. Germany, Germany's in there, that's 4. And Luxembourg, 5. So 5 were strong, 5 were weak. Part clay, part iron. Pigs nations are the 5 that were weak, the clay, and these here are the ones that are stronger. All right, that's what the scripture in Daniel, the 2nd chapter, the 41st verse is talking about. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Why is it going to be divided? Because of their financial status. You know, them other European countries are saying, we can't afford you no more. But there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, right? Because you do have those that are strong as iron. This is why the euro's still kicking. Because those other stronger economies have to kick in and, you know, step in and kind of pull the weight. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about no man mixed with machine. Part iron, part clay. No. It's talking about debt. And as thou sawest the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be what? Partly strong and partly broken. Let's look up this word. Let's see. Strong should be kazak. This one is takwayap. Let's look at this. The word for strong in the Hebrew is kazak, but I guess it's another one. Might, strong, mighty. Okay, this is another word for strong. It's used mostly in Daniel and Ezra. Let's see. They have been mighty kings also of Jerusalem. Okay. And this right here is dealing with kings, the might of kings. Because it says here in Ezra 4:20, there have been mighty kings also over Jerusalem, which have ruled over all countries beyond the river, and toll, tribute, and custom was paid unto them. So this 4th kingdom, strong financially and also militarily. Same thing. All right. So let's go back. And partly strong and partly weak. I'm sorry, broken. The word for broken is thabar, which you have, it comes from the word shabar, which means to break. To break, broken in pieces. Be fragile. See, why is it fragile? Financially, it's fragile. That's why it's referred to as clay, because when you make something out of clay and you make something out of iron, the iron taps the clay is going to break. The clay is easily broken. The steel is not as easy to break. Part broken, part weak. I'm sorry, part broken and part strong. That's what this is talking about. Not man and machine. Man, half iron, or they got an iron arm or iron leg, you know, iron forehead, you know, and then the rest of it is flesh. No. That's why when I watch the videos and he starts going into that, I start yelling at the screen. Leave the scriptures alone, dog. Leave the scriptures alone. Stick to the information. You're good with the information. You know, that is your gift. Your gift is go into the information, bring the information out. Leave the scriptures alone. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Right. Now, this part here, he says, see, that's, you know, because, you know, the Nephilims, you know, the demigods, you know, and they had the sons of God and mixing with them. No, that's not what it's talking about. First of all, let's dispel that myth real quick. It's not talking about angels mixing with men. You know, angel men mixing with men with women of human women. That's not what it's talking about. 1 Corinthians 15. Let's dispel that myth. 1 Corinthians 15:39. All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. There are also celestial bodies, heavenly bodies, and bodies terrestrial, earthly bodies. But the glory of the celestial is one, heavenly bodies, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. Two separate things. There's no such thing as the sons of God mixing with the, angels mixing with humans. No. What this is talking about unions that they make. Whether it's agreements, among themselves, or intermarriages, which a lot of times happen. I didn't hit the book of Habakkuk 2, but you brothers have posted it, Ibatya, which is thick clay, which is heavy debt, which goes heavy with this right here. The clay part. Matter of fact, let's get that. Habakkuk 2 and 6. Shall not all these take a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. We look up the word ladeth, which this goes into it perfectly. This is the finishing touches. Kabad, to be heavy. See? Be burdensome. All right? And then we go to the word clay. And the word there is ibat yat, which goes into weight of pledges, heavy debts. All right? And the weight of pledges and heavy debts comes from what? Pledging. What is a pledge? A pledge is a promise to do something for something. Pledge. Come on, baby. All right, okay, pledge. A solemn promise or undertaking. A thing that is given as what? Security for the fulfillment of a contract. What's another word for this? Collateral. Or the payment of a debt and is liable to forfeiture in the event of failure. And that's what it is. These are the heavy debts. Clay. Heavy debts. And that's the only time it appears in the scriptures. Heavy debts. Accumulate. Says, the meaning taken is that of accumulation of pledges. This is why the scriptures speak about surety, being surety. Let's go to that. Got a couple here. Proverbs 6 and 1. My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger. When you strike your hand means you make an agreement, or you bet, or you pledge something. All right? When you pledge, you have to pay. Better it is that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. He that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it, meaning he shall hurt for it. And this is what's happening. They're becoming surety to these different nations. To these different banks. These European countries. So like a surety. The word there is irab, which the word irab means to mix, but it also means to pledge, exchange, mortgage, engage, occupy. So it's a pledge. All right? It's a pledge, which we read what the pledge was. What else will we reading? Oh, surety. So let's go back to here. It says, Proverbs 11:15, he that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it, and he that hateth suretyship is sure. A man void of understanding striketh hands. Right, and when you strike hands, it doesn't mean, yo, son, you in my face, man. Get out of my face before I punch you in your jaw, man. Knock you out, man. Yo, I'm going to lay hands suddenly on you, dog. Get away from me. Nah, that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about when you betting something or you pledging something. They took things very serious back then. A man's word was his bond back then. That's why he spoke about having a good name. All right, so let's look up that word striketh. Proverbs 17:18. The word there striketh. The word there is thakwai. To blow, clap, strike, sound, thrust, give a blow, blast. To thrust, drive, clap. To be blown, blast of horn. To strike or pledge oneself. See? So it all depends on the context of the scripture. So this is to strike or pledge oneself. Collateral. All right. Proverbs 20:16, take his garment that is surety for a stranger. The best movie that comes to mind when I read this scripture is the movie A Knight's Tale. I believe it, yes, A Knight's Tale, where you had the guy that was a good orator, but he was a degenerate gambler. And you see him in the movie when he's first introduced, he's walking bucket naked because he was a degenerate gambler, and they would take your clothes back then. But the scriptures say, if you take your neighbor's clothing for a pledge, make sure you give it back to him because that's his clothing by the end of the day. All right, and this is why the IRS, them motherfuckers, came and took everything, even the rings off of the fingers of Red Fox. But this is a righteous, nation though. They are God-fearing, Bible-thumping Judeo-Christians, but they allow that. It says, and take a pledge of him for a strange woman. Proverbs 27:13, take his garment that is surety for a stranger, and take a pledge of him for a strange woman. Sirach 8:13, be not surety above thy power, right? Because if you only have enough, don't go above your means. For if thou be surety, take care to pay it. That pledge. And this is why these nations are in debt like that. But it goes far beyond that. It's because of prophecy. All right. So the other part of it, Lord's will, if I get a chance, I'll do a part with this part here, because we already an hour and almost 2 minutes. So I'm gonna end it off here, and Lord's will, if I get a chance, I could do a part 2, or just deal with this verse here. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say shalom.